Hi, it's Alan Binder again. I'd like to talk in this little video about the programmatic success of my mission, Lunar Prospector. Again, I would refer you to the book Lunar Prospector Against All Odds, because that gives all the details that I can't obviously cover in a very short video, and lets you know what really happened and how the mission was done and why it was a programmatic success. When we started Lunar Prospector as a private effort outside of NASA, we had many goals. One, to show the commercial viability of such missions, which I will also talk about in another video. We wanted to show that you could do a mission without the huge bureaucracy of NASA. We wanted to show that the management could be done very simply and very straightforward, which is something NASA cannot do. For example, most of you will not know this, but in a typical NASA mission, half of the cost is just bureaucracy and paperwork. So if you cut that out and reduce it to an absolute minimum, like I did in Lunar Prospector, you can cut the cost by a factor of 2 just before you even start. As I've mentioned in my earlier videos, Prospector costs approximately 1/10 what a NASA mission would cost. And I think you can see if we cut the cost by a half before you even start, you're a long ways towards reducing the cost to something which is quite doable. The mission was extremely successful in the following way. When we got interested in doing the missions that NASA was doing to the moon, well, proposed to the moon, they hadn't done a lunar mission in a very long time, but the Mars missions, Jupiter missions, etc., they were all $1 billion. And the proposed lunar orbiter missions were $1 billion. And we felt this was ridiculous, that you could show, and we wanted to show that you could do things a lot less expensively. And missions were taking 10, 12, 13 years to even get ready for launch. And that, again, raises the cost immensely. So our initial effort was to raise enough money to do the mission and to get good data for the science community, because obviously if you don't get good data, you're not going to succeed. So to make a long story short, which you can read in the book, which is a long story of course, the NASA Discovery Program started about 6 years into our mission. Now, I'd like to point out that even though NASA knew of our efforts and were very well informed as to what we were doing and how we were doing and how inexpensive it was, I was never informed of the Discovery Program. I was not invited to the very first meeting where everyone else was invited, and the reason for this is simple. NASA does not like people doing things outside of their control, and since they could not control us, they didn't want us to be involved. Well, when the Discovery announcement was made, I then found out about it, and as you can read in the book, I put in a proposal supported by Lockheed, the company I work for. Well, we built the spacecraft in 22 months. That was the faster part. Well, I should say the monitor of the Discovery Program was faster, better, cheaper. We were supposed to show how to do this. Well, we built the spacecraft in 22 months, so that was done. It was managed by just one person at Lockheed and me, which cut out all the bureaucracy. There was no paperwork to speak of, and so that cut out all that 50% of the cost. So we then were able to do things cheaper, because the whole thing cost just $63 million. There was a $2 million extended mission, but the actual primary mission was just $63 million. Now, the better part of faster, better, cheaper is that we produced data which was much better than I had proposed and we thought we could get. So we did faster, better, cheaper. NASA has never been able to do that. Each of their attempts to do a faster, better, cheaper mission has either failed or been very difficult to do. Instead of listening to what we accomplished, they simply buried it. Now, there's 2 reasons for their burying it. One, NASA had no interest in the moon whatsoever since Apollo. They wanted to go to Mars, and anything that interfered with that goal, i.e. interesting the public again in going back to the moon, they tried to ignore. The second part was, since I'm a critic of NASA, they did not like the fact that I was successful doing something they could not do. So basically, you've heard very little about Lunar Prospector. In fact, there's a funny story about this, in that almost everyone gets a NASA award, a gold medal, when you accomplish what I accomplished. And although I couldn't care less, as you'll read in the book, I was denied such a great honor. So Prospector did everything that NASA wanted to do, and yet you never hear of Lunar Prospector. It was meant to be pushed into a corner. Well, NASA pretended that it was its mission, as did Lockheed, by the way. And again, these things will be discussed in great detail in the book. So Prospector achieved all its goals, all the goals that NASA had originally set out for it, and yet NASA would not learn from this. In a later talk, I'm going to read to you my testimony to Congress. After there were 2 significant Mars failures, which were done faster, better, cheaper, and they failed, there was a congressional investigation. I was asked to discuss my success, as was the Clementine people. So Prospector did everything it was supposed to do and more, and yet it was totally ignored by NASA, and all the lessons learned were totally ignored. So I hope you will get Lunar Prospector Against All Odds and read how it was accomplished, what we did accomplish, the significance of it in terms of management, cost reduction, etc., and how NASA simply buried the story and the whole mission. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you again later.